Elizabeth could barely breathe when the words finally sank in. Andre had told everyone about the $75,000 loss before she even knew. Every private conversation, every whispered worry, suddenly plastered across the dinner table in front of Alex and Loren. The shock wasn't just the money, it was the betrayal, plain and simple. How could someone you've trusted for years share your most vulnerable moments with the world without a single warning? Elizabeth sat frozen for a second, the kind of stunned silence that says more than any shout ever could. You could see it in her eyes, the mix of hurt, disbelief, and the faint flicker of anger building into something much bigger. Andre, sitting there trying to justify himself, looked almost proud, like he thought revealing the financial loss would somehow make him look strong, transparent, or clever. But what it did was expose a pattern, one that Elizabeth had tried to ignore for years. Here's the question that hit everyone at the table: did Elizabeth finally see the real Andre? The man who prioritized showing off to his friends over protecting his wife's trust? The room felt heavier with every passing second. A $75,000 loss isn't small money, but the real damage wasn't financial. It was the trust that melted away in that instant. Andre had just handed the evidence to anyone who would listen, and worse, he had done it casually, like sharing a story about someone else. Elizabeth's cheeks flushed, partly from embarrassment, partly from rage. This wasn't the first time she'd felt blindsided, but it might be the one that cuts deepest. And then there was the social side of it. Everyone at the table noticed, but no one said a word at first. Silence can be louder than screams. Alex and Loren exchanged glances that said, "Wow, this is next level." Elizabeth, usually so composed, felt a wave of heat rise through her body. She opened her mouth to respond, but the words stuck. The betrayal was too sharp, too fresh, too public. Andre leaned back, maybe thinking he'd diffuse the tension. But tension wasn't going anywhere. Every move, every glance, every breath in that room carried the weight of years of secrecy and little lies stacking up. Elizabeth had defended him, overlooked his faults, made excuses, even laughed off minor embarrassments in the past. But tonight felt different. This was the sixth year of trying to hold the relationship together, and now it was on display for anyone to see. Here's the kicker: Elizabeth was left questioning more than just Andre's choices. She was questioning herself. Was she imagining things all this time? Was she too sensitive? Or had she finally come face to face with the reality she had been avoiding? This is the moment where long-term partners realize the truth about someone they thought they knew inside and out. And the truth isn't pretty. The tension wasn't only in Elizabeth's head. It bounced around the table like electricity. Everyone sensed the fragility of the moment. Andre's words, casual as they seemed, had opened a door that couldn't be closed. And now, every friend present was in the middle of a storm that had nothing to do with them, but they were powerless to stop it. Elizabeth's mind raced. She thought about the financial loss, yes, but she also thought about the invasion of privacy, the manipulation, the public embarrassment. Andre had done more than make a mistake, he had reshaped the rules of their marriage, and it was on display for everyone to see. And in that instant, Elizabeth understood she could no longer ignore the patterns, the betrayals, the little cracks that had always been there. You will not believe how this dinner turned into a war zone. As she sat there, caught between anger and disbelief, the room seemed smaller, tighter, suffocating with tension. And just when you think the worst has been revealed, there's always another layer waiting, another secret Andre hasn't yet spilled. This dinner was only the beginning, and Elizabeth's next move could change everything. Would she confront him, walk away, or find a way to survive another humiliation? That question hung in the air, heavier than the words Andre had just said. The shock wasn't just about money or gossip, it was about control, trust, and the harsh reality of being blindsided by someone you thought you knew. And as the camera captured every flicker of emotion, one thing became clear. Tonight, nothing would ever be the same. Elizabeth was still reeling, her mind racing faster than her heart. Shock, hurt, embarrassment, and anger collided all at once. She felt exposed, like her personal life had been thrown onto a stage with no script. Every glance at Andre reminded her of the trust he had shredded, and every laugh or smirk from him made the room feel even colder. It wasn't just what he did, it was the way he did it, calm, casual, like he believed there was nothing wrong in sharing her most private moments. Andre's behavior was on full display, and it wasn't flattering. Secretive about the money, oversharing to friends, pretending it was harmless gossip. He painted a picture of control that backfired. He wanted to appear confident, unbothered, maybe even charming, but all it did was reveal a pattern. A pattern where his judgment seemed skewed by ego, performative masculinity, and a strange need to impress others at the cost of his marriage. Every decision, every word screamed, "I'm more worried about how I look than how my wife feels." Elizabeth's embarrassment wasn't just about money. It was the betrayal of intimacy itself. She had confided in him countless times, trusted him to guard her vulnerabilities. And here he was, sharing the story like it belonged to the world, not to the two of them. Her anger simmered, boiling under the surface as she tried to keep her composure. The silence in the room amplified her tension, making every tick of the clock feel like another punch to her confidence. The complexity of this moment hit hard. Andre's actions weren't only selfish, they had consequences that stretched far beyond a single dinner. Elizabeth had to navigate not just betrayal, but the way it reshaped how friends and family saw her, how they saw the marriage. It was a public humiliation dressed as transparency, and the sting cut deeper than anyone could anticipate. She remembered all the small cracks that had been there before. Subtle dismissals, minor betrayals, moments of being ignored or minimized. Now stacked together, they became a mountain impossible to overlook. And yet, the question lingered. Had she misread him all along, or had Andre always been this man, hiding behind charm and casual deflections? Andre, on the other hand, seemed oblivious to the full weight of his actions. He kept just enough calm to appear in control, but every attempt to justify himself only made things worse. He told himself it was transparency, that sharing his story was harmless, but it wasn't. The oversharing wasn't about honesty, it was about status, about showing he was the clever one, and in that moment, everyone saw exactly what mattered to him. His judgment was on display, flawed and exposed, and Elizabeth wasn't the only one noticing. Her eyes flicked around the room, catching the reactions of Alex and Loren. They didn't need to say anything. The judgment was in the looks, the subtle shakes of the head, the way the air itself seemed heavier. And Elizabeth had to process all of it while holding her own sense of dignity together. It was exhausting, infuriating, and heartbreaking at the same time. And just when you think the tension might ease, there's always a turn. Andre's next comment, a shrug, a laugh, a small deflection, added fuel to the fire. Elizabeth had to decide, confront him, stay silent, or let the moment explode. Every choice carried consequences, and the next step could change the trajectory of their relationship entirely. You might think you know Andre's next move, but this twist will shock even his closest allies. Elizabeth's mind raced with scenarios. Could this be the wake-up call? Was it finally time to reevaluate years of patience and forgiveness? Every emotion was heightened, from indignation to fear, from disbelief to cautious anger. And the best part, or worst part depending on perspective, was that Andre didn't seem to understand the scale of what he had done. That ignorance, whether intentional or not, kept the suspense alive, making every reaction, every glance, every unspoken word heavier than before. The betrayal wasn't just financial, it was emotional, public, and deeply personal. And as Elizabeth sat there, trying to measure her next move, one thing became clear. Nothing about this dinner was simple, and every decision she made from this point would carry weight far beyond the moment. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Elizabeth sat rigid, every muscle taut, while Andre leaned back, trying to appear relaxed, though the slightest twitch in his jaw betrayed his nerves. Across the table, Alex and Loren exchanged subtle glances, caught somewhere between disbelief and discomfort. It wasn't just a financial discussion anymore. This dinner had turned into a courtroom, and everyone was a reluctant juror. Private betrayals had now become public spectacle, and the consequences were immediate. Every word Andre had spoken earlier hovered in the air like smoke, impossible to ignore. Elizabeth's embarrassment was magnified because it wasn't happening in a vacuum. Friends who had once been allies were now witnesses to her husband's questionable choices. How do you process being betrayed in front of people who you trusted would understand? And even more, how do you maintain dignity when the betrayal itself is loud, obvious, and impossible to avoid? Andre tried to lighten the mood, dropping small jokes and shifting the focus to side conversations. But nothing worked. The room felt electric, a mix of frustration, pity, and incredulity bouncing between each person. Every attempt at humor seemed tone-deaf, and with each passing moment, Elizabeth's patience wore thinner. Could this be the same man she had defended, laughed with, and shared so much of her life with? Or had the real Andre been hiding behind charm all along? Alex finally spoke, trying to mediate without taking sides, but his questions only dug the knife a little deeper. Did you tell Elizabeth about this before? He asked Andre, each word carefully measured. Andre fumbled, stammered, and tried to explain, but the explanation felt shallow, almost rehearsed. It was the kind of justification that looks better in a private text message than when said across a dinner table with witnesses. Lauren's reactions were more subtle but just as telling. A sharp raise of an eyebrow, a slight shake of the head, a suppressed sigh all spoke volumes. The public humiliation wasn't just about what Andre had done, it was about how everyone else perceived it. Trust doesn't exist in isolation, and in that moment, Elizabeth felt every eye in the room assessing not just Andre, but her and their marriage. And then, just when you think the drama couldn't escalate further, the conversation takes a turn. Andre tries to compare his mistake to harmless gossip, pretending he didn't understand the weight of the information he shared. But by now, the group had seen enough patterns to recognize a lack of judgment disguised as transparency. And the tension, it kept building, each word more loaded than the last. Now, imagine yourself in Elizabeth's shoes. Would you defend your spouse when everyone else seems to have silently voted against him? How far do you go before standing up for yourself, and how much can you tolerate before deciding enough is enough? These questions weren't just for her, they were for anyone watching. Anyone who had ever been caught between loyalty and humiliation. Despite the high stakes, there were moments that almost broke the tension with humor. Andre's awkward attempts at charm became almost cartoonish. Elizabeth's eye rolls perfectly timed, and Alex's gentle smirks at Andre's flustered explanations added layers of irony to the scene. But humor here didn't dilute the drama, it highlighted it, making the betrayal sting even sharper. But here's where the friend group drama flips the entire narrative. Elizabeth's silence wasn't weakness. It was observation, calculation, and emotional processing all at once. Every glance, every small gesture from Andre, Alex, and Loren was being weighed, judged, and filed away. The power in this scene didn't belong to Andre, it belonged to Elizabeth, quietly reclaiming control over how she chose to respond. And the subtle social dynamics in the room made the betrayal feel even more personal. By the end of the dinner, it was clear. The damage went far beyond $75,000 or a leaked conversation. Public humiliation had amplified private betrayals, forcing everyone involved to confront truths that were easier to ignore before. The tension, once simmering, now demanded attention. Elizabeth had to decide whether to address the betrayal head-on, redirect her energy elsewhere, or allow the evening to leave a lasting mark on her relationships. Every viewer watching had to wonder, what would they do in her place? And just when you think you have an answer, the next interaction promises yet another twist, another revelation, another opportunity for trust to fracture further. Once the episode aired, social media erupted. Twitter feeds, Instagram comments, TikTok reactions, everyone had something to say. Fans weren't holding back. Screenshots of Andre's careless brag about the $75,000 loss were circulating, and viewers couldn't stop dissecting every angle. Elizabeth instantly became the symbol of patience, strength, and grace under pressure, while Andre was trending for all the wrong reasons. It didn't take long for hashtags to start popping up, some in support of Elizabeth, others calling out Andre's judgment or lack thereof. Fans on Reddit went deeper, breaking down the scene frame by frame. How could he think it was okay to share that without telling her first? One comment read. Another added, Elizabeth handled it better than most people would, but the embarrassment is real. Who does that to their partner? You could sense the collective shock. People were not only reacting to the betrayal itself, but also to the public humiliation aspect. The $75,000 was bad enough, but the fact that it happened in front of friends turned the betrayal into a full-blown spectacle. But not all opinions were one-sided. Some viewers tried to give Andre the benefit of the doubt. He probably didn't think it would be a big deal, one commenter suggested, while another argued, at least he wasn't hiding the loss forever. He's being transparent in his own way. These perspectives sparked heated debates in comment sections. Should honesty be measured by timing and tact, or does the mere act of disclosure, no matter how poorly executed, count for something? The fan reactions didn't stop at personal opinions. Memes flooded the platforms. People captured Andre's awkward smirks, Elizabeth's stunned expressions, and even Alex's subtle judgment in reaction shots. Some of them were funny, others biting, but they all highlighted the social gravity of the moment. Every share, every tag, every comment reinforced just how public and messy this betrayal had become. And then there were the conflicted voices, the ones who understood both sides but couldn't reconcile them. I get why Andre wants to share his story, but it's so tone-deaf, a TikTok commenter noted. Another wrote, Elizabeth has every right to be mad, but I feel like there's more to the story than what we see on screen. These layered responses mirrored the tension in the dinner room itself. The audience was split, emotions running high, and no resolution yet in sight. Meanwhile, on fan forums, debates raged on about the long-term consequences. Would this be a wake-up call for Andre, or just another pattern in a series of missteps? Could Elizabeth forgive, or was this the tipping point she had been silently approaching for years? The unanswered questions kept the buzz alive, with each post feeding the next. Fans were speculating, theorizing, and tagging friends to weigh in. It became less about the $75,000 loss and more about trust, boundaries, and the ultimate question: what kind of partner do you want to be with when these situations arise? Even celebrities and reality TV commentators joined in, dissecting Andre's judgment, Elizabeth's reactions, and the ripple effect on the friend group. Every post, every clip, every highlight added fuel to the fire, intensifying the drama for anyone watching online. The fan community had become a secondary stage for the conflict, where debates, memes, and emotional takeaways amplified the stakes of the original dinner. Viewers are calling this Andre's biggest mistake yet, and you'll see why. But the conversation didn't stop there. Questions lingered, threads remained unresolved, and viewers kept revisiting the episode to catch subtle cues they may have missed. Was Andre truly unaware of the consequences, or was this a calculated risk? Could Elizabeth reclaim control, or would the public nature of the betrayal continue to haunt them both? The answers weren't coming fast, but the discussion was just getting started, keeping fans hooked, invested, and ready for the next explosive moment. This social media storm mirrored the emotional storm at the dinner table. Every fan opinion reflected the tension, the judgment, and the emotional stakes, reminding everyone that betrayal, embarrassment, and mistrust don't just exist behind closed doors, they thrive when shared publicly. And just like Elizabeth had to navigate the fallout in the room, Andre would soon face the court of public opinion, with every comment, like, and share weighing on his credibility and relationships. Elizabeth's mind was spinning long after the dinner ended. The laughter, the casual chatter, the clinking of glasses, everything now carried a shadow. Trust that had been quietly assumed for years now felt fragile, like glass teetering on the edge of a table. She replayed Andre's words over and over, trying to make sense of why he would share the $75,000 loss before telling her. The betrayal wasn't just financial. It was personal, intimate, and public. Every time she thought she understood the man she married, another layer of secrecy or poor judgment emerged, leaving her questioning everything. Her emotions were a mix of hurt, frustration, and cautious anger. She felt embarrassed, yes, but also angry at herself for letting patterns go unchecked. How many times had she brushed aside small warning signs, overlooked casual breaches of trust? This wasn't just about money, it was about respect, honesty, and boundaries. She realized that relationships, even long-term ones, require constant negotiation of trust and communication. And when one partner repeatedly misjudges those boundaries, it forces the other to reevaluate the foundation entirely. Andre's behavior was consistent with what fans had been noticing for years: secrecy, oversharing to others, and turning private matters into public stories. The $75,000 loss wasn't a one-time mistake, it was the latest example of a pattern. From body image comments to financial choices, Andre seemed to prioritize appearances and social validation over his wife's emotional well-being. Every misstep revealed a combination of poor judgment, performative masculinity, and an inability to fully consider the consequences of his actions. From a viewer's perspective, there's a lot to unpack here. Trust isn't just a feeling, it's a practice. Sharing sensitive information without consent can erode intimacy faster than almost anything else. Respecting boundaries, keeping confidences, and timing disclosures thoughtfully are essential. And when those lines are crossed repeatedly, it forces the partner on the receiving end to question not only the relationship but themselves. Am I being too sensitive? Did I ignore red flags? Could I have handled this differently? These are questions many viewers can relate to, which is why Elizabeth's situation resonates so strongly. The emotional fallout is compounded by the public nature of the betrayal. Private conflicts are one thing, but when friends, family, and social media witnesses are involved, the weight multiplies. Elizabeth isn't just processing Andre's mistakes, she's processing how the world sees them, how friends perceive their marriage, and how she can maintain her dignity amidst scrutiny. It's a delicate balance between emotional self-preservation and accountability, and she's forced to navigate both simultaneously. And just when you think Elizabeth might retreat quietly, her inner dialogue hints at action. She's reflecting on the relationship, weighing years of loyalty against the repeated breaches of trust. Every fiber of her being is grappling with whether to confront Andre fully or step back and reevaluate everything. The stakes are enormous. This isn't a small argument, it's a pivotal moment that could redefine their marriage forever. Practical insight for viewers: relationships thrive on honesty, timing, and mutual respect. Even small breaches, when left unchecked, can snowball into public humiliation and emotional damage. Setting clear boundaries, communicating expectations, and holding each other accountable are not just advice, they are survival tools for long term intimacy. Elizabeth's journey shows how high the stakes can get when these essentials are ignored or taken lightly. And the moment Elizabeth finally speaks her truth will leave you stunned. Every emotion is heightened, every decision carries weight, and every conversation now is a potential turning point. Will she confront Andre with everything she's been holding in? Will she demand accountability, or has the public nature of this betrayal already reshaped the power in their relationship? The answers aren't simple, but the suspense is electric. For Elizabeth, this is more than a dinner. It's a reckoning, and everyone watching knows the fallout could change everything. By the time the night ended, the emotional toll was impossible to ignore. Elizabeth sat quietly, her mind still racing from every revelation, every betrayal, and every awkward glance across the table. The heartbreak was real. Years of patience, loyalty, and love had collided with moments of secrecy, questionable judgment, and public humiliation. She had witnessed the person she thought she knew reveal a side of himself that was careless, performative, and deeply self-focused. Andre, meanwhile, seemed caught between trying to downplay the situation and managing the visible tension in the room. His attempts at humor and casual remarks couldn't erase the reality. Trust had been fractured, boundaries crossed, and respect called into question. Every misstep, every glance, every attempt to justify himself only made Elizabeth's position clearer. She was left evaluating the entire relationship, wondering whether patterns of secrecy and betrayal were temporary lapses or signs of deeper issues. The friend group's presence amplified the stakes. Alex and Loren had witnessed firsthand the dynamics, their reactions subtle but telling. Elizabeth's embarrassment, Andre's misjudgments, and the awkward social navigation created layers of tension that weren't easily resolved. Public humiliation had turned private mistakes into shared spectacle, leaving everyone to consider what was acceptable in friendships, in marriages, and in the court of public opinion. The ripple effects were immediate. Fans had been watching, commenting, and analyzing every move. Social media was buzzing with speculation about Elizabeth's next step. Would she confront Andre directly? Would she reclaim her voice fully, or would she take a step back to process the betrayal privately? The public eye added pressure, but it also offered a kind of validation. People were noticing the emotional labor she was performing, the careful navigation of anger, hurt, and dignity. Every viewer could feel the tension because it mirrored real-life situations where trust and betrayal collide in messy, unpredictable ways. Elizabeth's internal reckoning wasn't just about the money or the leaks. It was about respect, boundaries, and emotional safety. She had to weigh her love against repeated patterns of questionable judgment and oversharing. The decisions she faced were heavy, and the suspense kept viewers hooked. Would she assert herself, or let the moment pass unresolved? The emotional beats from earlier, Andre's casual smirk, the public discussion of private issues, the subtle judgments from friends, all converged to create an undeniable climax of tension. Andre's pattern of secrecy and performative masculinity had been exposed not just to Elizabeth but to everyone around them. And the consequences were clear. Relationships can't survive repeated breaches of trust, especially when they're played out in public. Elizabeth had to decide whether to confront him fully, step back, or attempt to repair the cracks while maintaining her dignity. Each choice had implications not just for their marriage, but for her own self-respect. If you thought tonight was intense, the next episode raises the stakes even higher. The minor cliffhangers and unresolved questions from earlier moments, the $75,000 loss, the leaked texts, the subtle glances from Alex and Loren, the social media debates, Elizabeth's reflection, are all building toward a reckoning. Every thread, every tension, every suspicion is waiting for its payoff, and it's coming soon. The night ended without a final confrontation, but the story is far from over. Emotions are raw, trust is fractured, and viewers are left wondering what Elizabeth will do next. Will she confront Andre in a way that finally makes him accountable? Will the public humiliation push their marriage to the breaking point? Or will the next conversation reveal an unexpected twist that changes everything? Next episode, one confession changes everything, and you won't see it coming. The emotional journey, the tension, the heartbreak, and the suspense have all been carefully layered to keep viewers invested. Every reaction, every glance, and every social media post has contributed to a story that's alive, unpredictable, and impossible to ignore. For Elizabeth, the consequences of this evening are just beginning to unfold, and for the audience, the drama is only escalating.